There's a reason I have this button on my soundboard. It's the sound of a strike, a ball hitting the head pin, setting the rest of the pins flying. Oh, it's a beautiful sound. It always surprises and always delights. Last night, Nvidia bowled a strike, and today stocks of all kinds careened, skittered, vibrated, and rocked in a symphony of glorious sound. The 10-pin average story with the Dow jumping 56 points, the S&P gaining 0.53%, and the Nasdaq advancing 0.3%. Nvidia's been duking it out with Apple and Microsoft in the lanes, fighting over who gets to be the largest company on Earth. Right now, it's head-to-head with Apple. $3.5 trillion for Nvidia versus $3.45 trillion for Apple. Yes, that's right, nosing out Apple as the champ. Microsoft has suddenly fallen way behind. The leaderboard drops off even bigger than before. Whoa! Make no mistake about it, Nvidia's strike last night is opening some distance between it and the rest of the field. The numbers are staggering for a company that just a few had even heard of as recently as 2 years ago, when its market cap was just $500 billion. Nvidia booked $35 billion in revenues last quarter, with a net income of $20 billion, 75% gross margins. Those numbers are preposterously great. Preposterous. Just a spectacular ramp-up. A year ago, many critics were claiming Nvidia was absurdly expensive, trading at 50 times forward earnings. People laughed at me for championing the seemingly overvalued semiconductor stock. Well, when we see the actual numbers, it turns out that a year ago Nvidia was really only trading at 20 times forward earnings. That's how incredible these results were. In retrospect, it was cheap, cheap, cheap. That's what happens when a company outruns the estimates. And as I've told you repeatedly, Nvidia's been outrunning the estimates for a decade. Super expensive? Nah. Perfectly reasonable. That's the stock that is Nvidia. It's why I've loved it for so long. How do they do it? Oh, Nvidia is rolling not one but two balls down the lane. One being accelerated computing and the other being artificial intelligence. It's all happening because CEO Jensen Huang and his team may be the best bowlers of all time. Figuratively speaking, of course. This morning on Squawk on the Street my fabulous partner Carl Quintanilla started off the show by asking me what I thought about Nvidia's quarter. At the time, the stock was down a buck or two, and I was muted. I was clinical, not one to hype a stock I've championed to the point of ridicule. But then I sat back and paused for a moment, not my strong suit, and I said that frankly, I've never seen anything like what's happening at Nvidia. Never. Just never. And even though the stock was down, despite 19 firms raising their price targets this morning, I said this stock is simply not capturing the seismic shift that's happening here. You see, Nvidia is disrupting everything we know about business. There are only so many superlatives when it comes to the demand for their technologies. We've heard it labeled insane. We've heard it called tremendous. Last night, the operative word was staggering. I suppose even Jensen is struggling for comparisons at this point, as when he was talking about how one usage for their latest and best microprocessor, Blackwell, is OpenAI. He said it's something completely new, like the iPhone. The iPhone. He compared it to that. We think of the iPhone as this once-in-a-lifetime invention, but when you go through the Nvidia call, you realize that the iPhone may be smaller by comparison. Smaller. In the end, that was just a single device, no matter how revolutionary. Nvidia chips, they're remaking the world as we know it. There's $1 trillion worth of computing power that needs to be replaced by Nvidia. There are trillions of dollars in factories that need to be built with the Nvidia Omniverse. There are trillions that can be saved in legal work, forecasting, supply chain management, engineering, and most of all, coding, where you can just speak to the machine and tell it what to do in plain English rather than a programming language. Elon Musk's idea to provide everyone with a human-like robot to perform the grunt work and other tedious tasks is worth trillions of dollars. Indeed, it is Shakespearean. Perhaps it's Jensen's universe, and all the women and men are just players, I've been thinking. Alternatively, to use the more mundane bowling comparison, this quarter was so seismic that entire sectors flew in separate directions. First, the good. Jensen stated unequivocally that we now lack the electricity necessary to meet all of these robots' demands. So it causes power producers like Constellation Energy and Vistra to climb. It bolsters the case for the data center plays, meaning Vertiv, DuPont, and Eaton. The data centers pick and shovels. They can soar. Jensen stated that there are some memory shortages, perhaps connected to high-bandwidth CPUs. Oh, it's Micron. Symbol. MIMU. Been waiting for that to work. Optical items, which are backbone plumbing. Oh, that's Marvell Technology. Amphenol, a connection maker, receives a shout-out, therefore its stock soars. These are all traditional pin actions. And then I want you to write this down because it's something that you're going to be hearing over and over again. I want you to be ready. The term agentic computing refers to a completely new type of computing in which NVIDIA-powered bots are deployed throughout your company, with Salesforce, for example, receiving special recognition. Salesforce CEO Mark Benioff has been discussing his agentic offering, which can generate billions of agents. Agentic. What does it signify? For instance, I wanted to talk to a doctor today on the findings of a test I had on Monday. When I called, I received the same recorded fool who doesn't recognize me, with 4 selections that passed by so quickly that I had to have them repeated. But they weren't related to the person I wanted, so I pressed 2 to talk to someone who might be. So I got back in the queue and pressed 3. I spoke with a human there, but it was the incorrect one. The person who transferred me to the correct person scribbled down my number without getting my name, and I never received a callback. When I call in the agentic world, an agent picks up. It recognizes my number, so it knows my name. It calls up my record and asks me whether I want to speak to the doctor I saw earlier in the week. Yes, I reply. It then requests a thorough message from me, which will be forwarded to the physician. Because it possesses all the information required to handle often asked issues, it may potentially provide an answer on its own. Agentic computing is that. Talkative. Agent non-existent. NVIDIA powers it all. You receive a human. I don't want the human, I say. The agent is what I desire. Salesforce, Accenture, and ServiceNow all take off. Several businesses, including Cadence, NetApp, and Nutanix, support the technique. Yes, but let me point out a small drawback because it's kind of funny. Microsoft stock is down $1.79. Meta is down $243. Amazon is down $44.50. And Tesla is down $2.39 on a day of massive gains. Why? As these are the largest clients of Nvidia. We've been hearing the myth for nearly a year that the expenditure on Nvidia chips couldn't continue because supply couldn't keep up with demand. However, those are a bunch of falsehoods. Due to the enormous payout, demand is increasing. Jensen claims that they make 5 smackers for every dollar his consumers invest, because companies must be relevant in Jensen's world, or else they are forced to purchase Nvidia chips. Therefore, don't believe that Nvidia's stock is going to hit a ceiling. The strikes that were rolled last night, in my opinion, were only the preliminary frames. A brat, ham bone, turkey, or even a 6-bagger, that is, 3, 4, 5, or even 6 strikes, could be what we are seeing. Many frames, lots of gains. The final conclusion is that, although I never imagined saying it, I have run out of superlatives. It's impossible to describe how good things are at Nvidia. It is beyond our comprehension. Thankfully, we are not required to. Jensen is smart and has the technology to do it for us.